Well, hello again, and welcome to That Real Estate Show. I am so glad that you could join us. Thank you for watching on YouTube and Rumble. If you're streaming on Spotify, thanks for joining us. My name is Tim, and I will be your host as we dive into all things real estate. The goal of this show is to be educational and insightful, and hopefully we'll have a little fun along the way. So That Real Estate Show is appraised at more than it's worth. And terms and conditions include good vibe, educated guesses, and mild panic. Today's episode, we are going to talk about why getting pre-approved before you shop. I know we've talked about this several times in different episodes and in different ways, but I really wanted to highlight the importance of it because there really is no part of the home buying process that is as important as getting pre-approved. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about our home buying myth for this week. And then at the end, like we always do, we'll do our market data. So we're going to look at Cromwell, which is 06416, and then we'll look at East Hartford 06074. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Before I do, though, I kind of wanted just to talk about a few things. A long time ago, actually now, several years ago, I was in a band and I had a friend, my friend Steve. I considered him like a brother. And like I said, we were in a band together. And, sadly, he got mixed up in some drugs. And ultimately, at the end, he committed suicide. So the reason why I bring this up is because just recently, someone very close to me was having a hard time and tried to take her life. Maybe you know somebody, or maybe you yourself are struggling with depression or anxiety or just feeling overwhelmed with life. And I wanted to let you know that there is help available. 988 is the phone number that you can call. If you need to talk to somebody, you can text that number as well. And they even have a website. It's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So I just wanted to throw that out there just because it kind of hit close to home again. Like I said, this was something kind of recently that has happened. And, when my friend Steve ended his life, it was pretty devastating. And so I know what it's like to go through that. And so, if you need support, if you know somebody who has committed suicide and you need support, there's also help for you as well. So I know that's kind of really off topic. It doesn't really have anything to do with real estate. But again, it was just something that I just felt it was important to bring up. So I want to encourage everybody to do that because you're not alone. I know it feels that way sometimes. I've gone through some, episodes where I kind of felt depressed and just kind of really felt like, there was nobody there and that I was all alone. But I want you to know that that's not true. You are not alone. There are people that want to help you. There are people that love you and they want the best for you. So let's go ahead and we will get into our topic for today. I know I've talked about this before, why getting pre-approved before you shop is so important. And really, like I said at the beginning, there is no part of a process that is as important as this. And here's a couple of reasons why. So you can see on the screen there, knowing exactly what you can afford. I feel like right now we live in this microwave society, right? Everything is microwavable. We want everything instantly. We're so used now to everything just being readily available at our fingertips. We don't want to have to wait for anything. And we just kind of like want things when we want them and we want it now. And really, home buying is so uniquely different. It's not like buying a car. It's not like buying a television. It's not like there's no other thing on the planet that you buy that is like buying real estate. And the reason for that is because, if you're thinking about buying a used car, they will go look at cars first, and then they will try to get financing to see if they can get approved for that car. And you know what? Maybe that's not the right way to do it, but you can kind of get away with that because, car manufacturers make tens of thousands of cars a year, right? So if you have your eye set on one particular vehicle and you want to try and buy it, but someone swoops in and puts a deposit down on that vehicle, so now that vehicle is no longer available, it's kind of like not the end of the world, right? Because you can just go, okay, well, what else do you have on your lot that fits my budget that I like, that I can see if I can qualify for financing? Houses are not like that. These are uniquely different in the fact that there is only one house that sits on that one piece of land in that one town, in that one county, in that one state. So there, you can't think about home buying like buying a used car because because there is no other option. They don't make that same house in a different color 2 blocks away that you can. Now, I mean, is it possible? Is there theoretically possible that there's another house right around the corner that is in your price range that you could then put an offer in on? Sure. But the likelihood of that happening is pretty remote. So I wouldn't really bank on that as my strategy of, okay, when I go to look for a house, if I can't get this one, that's okay, because right around the corner, there's going to be one that will also fit my needs. So houses are so uniquely positioned. And like I said, there's no other thing that you'll ever buy in your life that, first of all, will cost as much, right? Because it's a big purchase. And I recognize that. And I understand that. It's a big decision, to start looking for a house, and it can be overwhelming. And see, that's why I'm here. That's why your realtor is so vitally important. Having that person to talk to kind of talk you off the ledge, to kind of maybe reassure you, give you some guidance, give you some tips, even do some recommendations. If you're not sure where to start, if you don't feel like your lender's giving you what you're looking for as far as terms or rate, your realtor is a resource that you can use and say, who else can I talk to maybe to get a better rate? Or what other things are out there? Is there a program out there that I can qualify for to maybe get down payment assistance or first-time homebuyer programs? I know we've talked about that on the show a couple of times. That time to own program is so monumentally huge, right? $25,000 free dollar. Who would want to give that up, right? Now, obviously, there are terms and conditions you have to qualify for. You have to be buying in a certain area and you have to meet income requirements or whatever. But why would you just leave $25,000 on the table, right? If you can get it, why not? Yeah, it does. There's a commitment. We've talked about this before too. You have to own the house for 10 years. And every year that goes by, they forgive 1/10 of that loan. It's not a loan, but they forgive 1/10 of it. And then, so at the end of 10 years, that $25,000 is forgiven. You don't have to pay it back. And I actually had a client that I was talking to about this, and they were really excited about it. And they said, well, what happens if I decide to sell? And I'm like, you can definitely do that. So if you decide to sell your house, if you don't want to live in it for 10 years, so if it's a starter home for you, and then maybe you get married, or you and your spouse have a child or have a second child, and now all of a sudden you need more space, and so you need to sell and buy something new, you can still sell the house. You just have to then pay back whatever portion that down payment assistance was not forgiven. So let's just say, for example, $25,000, right? So let's say you own the house for 5 years. So they've already forgiven $12,500 of that. And so, but you need to sell because you need to maybe relocate for a job, or like I said, your family's expanding and you need more space. When you sell, you just end up paying back the $12,500 that was not forgiven. So I don't want you to feel like, well, if I go with this program, I'm stuck in this house for 10 years. That's not really the point. They want to establish long-term, home ownership, right? So, knowing what you can afford is so monumentally important because, and I know I've mentioned this before too, why would you want to go look at a house that ends up being $50,000 or $100,000 above your budget? That's just going to set you up for disappointment. So then you're going to go, Tim, why did you even let me see this house if I couldn't afford it? Well, first of all, I'm not a mortgage lender. I wish I was, but I'm not. So I can't pre-qualify you. I have to go based on what you tell me as far as your income and whether or not you can get qualified. And a lot of people think, well, yeah, I can get qualified, no problem. But you can't prejudge your credit. That's why it's so important to talk to a mortgage lender and get pre-approved. The credit score that you see on your bank statement or on your credit card statement is not the credit score that a mortgage lender is going to use to qualify you for that mortgage. They use the FICO Classic score. And I know we talked about this in our last episode or a couple episodes ago. So just because you think you know what your credit score is, that may not actually be the case. Your credit score may fluctuate by even as much as 100 points based on whichever model you're looking at and the model that mortgage lenders use to qualify applicants. So knowing how much you can afford is so vitally important. Now, that's kind of like the negative side, right? But the positive side is maybe you can actually afford more house than you think. So maybe you're thinking, oh, my income's not so great, or my credit score maybe isn't as good as I think it is, so I can't really buy anything, really nice. Well, you may surprise yourself. You may actually qualify based on the lender and the programs that they can offer and the interest rate and the terms. Maybe you can actually afford more house than you think. So maybe you're not stuck buying that 1-bedroom condo. You can actually maybe afford a 2-bedroom single family house. And obviously there are things that come into play with that affect that, where you live, obviously. Hartford, I think, has a very high mill rate. So taxes are, high in Hartford versus maybe another town where taxes are a little bit lower because the mill rate is lower. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of different things that go into buying a house and getting approved for a mortgage. Really, the bottom line is how much you want to pay every month for your mortgage, right? So your mortgage is made up of 4 parts, right? So there's the principal, so the amount that you're borrowing, the interest that they're charging you, and then your homeowner's insurance and your taxes are typically, they're all escrowed together. So you have those 4 pieces that at the beginning of the month, the first of the month, that's what your mortgage payment is comprised of. So the other thing too, standing out as a serious buyer and strengthening your offer. So those kind of 2 things I kind of combine as one point, because when you make an offer on a house, you are going to have to submit a copy of your pre-approval letter, because the seller is going to want to know that A, you're serious, that you are what they call a ready, willing, and able buyer. So you've been pre-approved, you're ready to go, you've got your financing in place. And by doing that, then they can kind of look at the entire picture. They can look at your offer, they can look at that pre-approval that you have and say, how is this guy, how does this guy compare to the next guy, right? If I get multiple offers, which in this current market, you are typically going to get multiple offers on a house. So now you're competing against other buyers who are looking to purchase the same property. Usually agents like myself will kind of create a spreadsheet so that the seller can see in a glance the offer that's coming in, how much it's for, what they're financing, what the down payment is, what the terms are, so they can kind of use that to judge and pick the best offer for them. The highest offer doesn't always win. Sometimes it comes down to terms. If someone is able to close within 30 days versus somebody and they're not going to be able to close for 60 days, that might be more appealing to the seller versus getting a higher price, because maybe their timetable is, they have to be out by a certain date because they're purchasing another property, maybe in another state or whatever. So, the term, the fact that the person can close quickly may be more appealing to them than someone who's going to offer a higher price. The other thing too is, like, if that person's also putting, say, 10% down versus the next guy who's only putting 3% down, well, they may look at that and say, well, this person is only putting 3% down. Maybe they're kind of overextended a little bit, or they're not in as strong a financial position to purchase this house, where somebody's putting 10% down. Okay, well, maybe they have a little bit more money to play with, and that might make them look more attractive to the seller. So, when you're submitting an offer, and that includes if you're going with cash. So if you are a cash buyer, you still have to show proof of funds. So no seller is going to take your offer seriously unless they know that you can consummate the deal, if you can actually close the deal and get to the closing table. So they're going to want to know that you have the funds available to complete the transaction, because no seller wants to get under contract with somebody and then have the deal fall apart because their financing fell through, or they really didn't have the liquid funds in their account that they said they did. The 4th point there, showing sellers that you're credit ready, that's the same, that kind of all goes in the same thing. Someone who's already been pre-approved, that's going to show the seller that you're a ready, willing, and able buyer. You've gone through the process, you are locked and loaded, you are ready to move forward in the process and get the deal done. Speeding up the closing process, again, kind of all gets tied together, because being pre-approved means you're ready to go, and you can actually get yourself to a position where you submit all the documents that your lender requires up front so that you can close even faster. So, because it goes through underwriting and they're going to ask for certain documents, they're going to ask for your W-2s for the last 2 years and your tax returns and things like that. So you can actually submit all that stuff, and anything that they need you to submit, you can do that ahead of time, even before you have, finalized your decision and made an offer on a house, so that they are ready to go. And they could even close maybe in 21 days or 14 days if you're already all set to go. All the T's have been crossed, all the I's have been dotted, and that can position you even stronger as well. So, and then the last point, obviously, is focusing your home search with confidence. And, we talked about that kind of at the beginning. Why would you look at houses that you can't afford? That just sets you up for failure and disappointment. Focusing your home search on homes that you can afford. And again, that all comes down to taxes and insurance, your principal and interest. And you can kind of work that backwards too. So if you say to yourself, well, I only want to pay $2,000 a month, you can kind of work that backwards and say, well, what areas can I live in, based on the tax rate and what my insurance company says that they would charge me for, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Then you can kind of say, well, then I can, if you work those numbers backwards, then you can say, okay, well, then I can probably afford a house up to, $250,000 or $300,000 or whatever the case may be. So that is why it is so important to get pre-approved. I know I've harped on it. People don't want to do it. And I get why you don't want to do it. We talked about it before. Buying a house is the biggest purchase that you'll ever make. It's almost like going to school, right? When you go to college, it's like that's the biggest decision that you make, because this is your career. You're going to be ended up with, depending on where you go, you might have tens of thousands of dollars worth of student loan debt. And, buying a house is such a big deal. And people don't want to get pre-approved because they're like, well, I don't want to ding my credit. Yes, there is a slight ding. It's usually, 5-6 points, whatever it is. But you can shop around. So once you start seriously, shopping for a mortgage, you have 30 days. And all those inquiries are only going to count as one on your credit report. Now, when you look at your credit report, you will see all the different times that a lender has pulled your credit, but it will only count against you one time. It only counts as one inquiry. So you have 30 days. So that's why it's just really so important that if you're just window shopping, then that's fine. You can window shop all you want. You can go to Zillow or Realtor.com or Redfin or Compass or wherever you want to go, Homes.com, and look for houses. If that's just something it's just something you're interested in but not really ready to pull the trigger, that's fine. But don't click to start scheduling showings if you're not in the position where that, okay, I'm serious, I'm ready to buy a house, and I want to get this process started. It just saves you some time. It saves you some aggravation. And honestly, from an agent's perspective, it saves us as well, because I can't tell you how many times I've gotten in contact with somebody who clicked the link, maybe by mistake, like, oh, I didn't mean to, I'm not really in the market, or maybe they already have an agent. Somebody who's already has an agent should not be clicking links on Zillow or Redfin or wherever for more information, because what that does, and we talked about this, I think, in the first couple of episodes of this show, that's just going to end up creating a lead that gets generated, that gets blasted out to, dozens of other agents who are then going to start blowing up your phone and your email looking to see if you're ready to buy a house. And so if you already have an agent, you're going to want to contact your agent direct. Sunday mornings, you're in your pajamas and you're drinking your coffee and you're just perusing the houses that are for sale online. That's great. Do that to your heart's content. But if you find something that you like and you already have an agent that you're working with, just give them a call or shoot them a text message and be like, hey, can we go see this house? First of all, your agent will thank you for that, for being responsible to notify them when you see a property that you're interested in. But you'll also save yourself some aggravation, because then you won't get blasted with all these calls and emails and text messages from other agents who are trying to earn your business. So that takes care of that piece. And in this episode, our home buying myth is, if your credit score is less than stellar, you cannot buy a house. That is false. We've talked about it before. It all depends on the program that you're looking for. If you're going for a conventional mortgage, so if you are not trying to do FHA or CHFA or something like that, you would need, I believe it was a 620. right? They were saying that the minimum score for a conventional mortgage is like 620. And with the FHA and CHFA, those kind of loans, that minimum score was like 580, but even they might even qualify you at a lower credit score. So don't feel like you have to have that 700 or 800 credit score in order to buy a house. Obviously, your credit score is going to get tied to your interest rate, right? So the better your score, the lower the interest that you're going to be charged on your mortgage. But, there are different ways around that too. You can pay points, what they call points, which is prepaid interest. So if you have the means to do so, you can actually prepay some of that interest to lower your interest rate. There's an interest rate buy down. We can talk about that in a future episode. I've got some slides that we can go over on how that works. So your credit score is super important, yes, in getting pre-approved for a mortgage, but you don't have to have perfect credit to buy a house. So, and then, and there are things that you might want to, look at in your credit report. You can get a free copy every year from the 3 major credit bureaus. I think we talked about that in the previous episode. Give them a call or go to their website, order that free copy, take a look at it. If you don't know what you're looking at, if you look at it if you're like me and you look at it and you go, I have no idea what this is, I don't understand it. Give Stephen a call. Stephen Robert, we talked about him before. He was the one that 2-part series that we did on how your credit score affects your buying power. Give him a call, shoot him a text message, email him, be like, Stephen, can I send you my credit report so you can look at this with me and tell me what am I looking at and how do I make this better? How do I get myself into a position where I have a higher credit score so that I can qualify for a better mortgage? I'm sure he'd be happy to help you with that. And this was something I found that was interesting too. And I don't know that everybody really understands the difference. So when you're talking about the value of a home, there are 2 different numbers that you're going to come up with. There's the market value, and then there's the market price. So, a lot of people will say, well, my home is worth, $400,000 because Zillow said so. Well, first of all, and I know we mentioned this before, Zillow is not going to be correct. The A in Zillow stands for accuracy. I know I've said that before too. There is no A in Zillow because they're not accurate. Their algorithm online does not take into account things like condition and things like that. And so you have to be able to compare apples to apples, right? So the market value that you're going to get for your house is the opinion of what a property would sell for in a competitive market. So we're going to take your home, whether it's a ranch or a Cape Cod or whatever, and we're going to compare it to other ranches or Cape Cods, contemporaries, or whatever it is, colonials, and we'll make adjustments based on factors like condition and things like that. So like, for example, if your home is sitting on a third of an acre, 0.36 or something like that, you really can't really compare that to another house that's sitting on like 2.5 acres because there's a lot of value there, right, that you would have to adjust for. So we would make that adjustment. So let's just say your home has a brand new kitchen. Or the house that you want to compare it to has a brand new kitchen. So we would make adjustments for that. If your home only has 1 bathroom versus another home down the street that has 1.5 or 2 bathrooms, we would make adjustments for that as well. So that's part of that CMA. I know we've talked about that every episode. If you would like to know what your market value is for your home, I'm happy to do it. I do it for free of charge. There's no obligation. You don't even have to list with me. If you get it done, of course, I would prefer that you did. I would love to earn your business that way. But I can do that comparative market analysis and let you know what the market value is for your home in today's market. I try to do it within a mile. Anything within a mile of your home. Sometimes that's more difficult if you live in a rural area or if your house is very unique. Maybe it was a house I showed one time. It was actually like an octagon shape. So it was very different. Like there was a atrium in the middle. It was very interesting. So it was kind of hard in that particular situation to run that CMA because there wasn't really a lot of houses that were like that in the area. So we will do that. We will take, your home and compare it to other houses in the neighborhood that are similar, and then we would come up with that market value. Now, market price is very, very different. Market price is what's a ready, willing, and able buyer is willing to pay for that property. And obviously the seller has to accept, right? So because there's no deal until the seller accepts the offer. So sometimes market value and market price are very different. They're very far apart, and we saw that during COVID, right? So a house may have been listed for $250,000 or $300,000, ended up selling for $400,000 or $450,000 because people were willing to pay that, because either A, they had this super low interest rate, so they were able to finance more, get more house for less money, or if they were a cash buyer, they had that available because they had sold their previous property, at this huge profit. So there are two different numbers that you're going to come up with. And sometimes people confuse the two, I think, people, and because, they tend to put sentimental value on things. So what, your home is maybe the home where your kids grew up. And so you have all these memories attached to your home. Unfortunately, memories don't really equate to value, right? So the buyer's not going to care that that's where your kids grew up. They're going to look at, how old is the furnace and the water heater, and how old is the roof. That's the things that they're going to use to come up with that market price, what they're willing to pay for the home. Hopefully you found that helpful and of value. So here we are at the end of the show. We're going to look at our market report for April. This is for Cromwell. You can see that there are 9 active listings. That's down 10% from March. And there are 2 new listings as of when I created this slide. I think that was actually a week ago. So that was 5 days from a week ago. There actually may be more listings as of right now. And the median days on market, again, that median number is the middle number. So between 1 and 10, the middle number is 5. So median days on market is 37. That's ticking up just a little bit, 5% from March. And you can see the median list price, $714,900, and that's up 115%. Now, there could be a couple of different things that are driving that number up. Obviously, it's not the number of listings, right? Because the number of listings is down. But maybe there's that in the last 5 days, those 2 listings, maybe one of them is a mansion or a really great property, so that's driving that price up. But if Cromwell is an area that you live in and you like to see how your house stacks up and you want to see maybe what your house would be worth if we put it on the market, give me a call, shoot me a text message. I forgot to put my information up, so let me put that up real quick. So there's my email address, my cell phone number. Call me, text me, and I'll be happy to do that comparative market analysis for you. We can see how much your house would be potentially worth. And then we can talk strategy. Like when is it appropriate for you to sell? Maybe, now it's April. So maybe your kid's getting ready to graduate high school or college. And, maybe they're going to be moving, out and leaving the nest. And so maybe it's time for you to downsize. Maybe it's time to look for something a little smaller or cheaper. Maybe you're ready to move out of state, now that your kid is out of college. Give me a call, shoot me a text message. We can definitely look at that for you and find out what your home could be worth. And again, if you're looking to move to Cromwell, so there are 2 new listings, and there are 9 active listings. So maybe one of those is the house that you've been looking for. And then finally, the market report for East Hartford. You can see there are 14 active listings, which is down almost 40% from March. There are 3 new listings, and median days on market is 18, which is up 38%. So houses seem like they're selling really, really fast in East Hartford. East Hartford is kind of a hot area, might be something that you would be interested in pursuing and looking into. There are those 14 active listings, so maybe one of those is the house that fits your needs. And that median price you can see is $517,450, which is up about 18% from March. So again, if you live in East Hartford and you would just like to know how much your home is worth, maybe it's time, like I said, for you to downsize, or maybe you need to upsize. Maybe you, now that spring is here, maybe it's time to move to a bigger place. Give me a call, shoot me a text. We can find out, what your home may be worth. And then we can develop a plan for not only listing it, but then finding the right house for you when it's time to buy that new house. So if you have questions, I have answers. Please, let me know. Call me, text me. You can comment on the videos. Anybody who comments on the video will get one of my free That Real Estate Show stickers. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. If you have a question, maybe somebody told you something that you're like, well, I'm not sure if that's true, or what's your opinion on this? Or maybe you have a problem. let me know. I'd love to have you, submit your question and have it put on the air. So, as I've mentioned many times, I am a Windsor Locks Lion. So, our golf tournament is coming up May 9th. It's at Simsbury Farms golf course. So, if you're a golfer or you know somebody who is and they would like to participate, we are looking for sponsors. So, if maybe you have a business and you'd like to sponsor a tee, we'll have a tee sign put up at all the 18 holes. Or if you have a team, if your business or you just have some friends who are avid golfers, and you don't even have to be good. I'm not that good, and I like to play, and so I play in the tournament, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, we have lunch, and then we have dinner, and there's raffles. So you can see there on the screen, it's $140 a person. So if you don't have a team, that's okay. If maybe there's just two of you, we can always pair you up with two other people, and it's really a great time. Hopefully, we'll have good weather, God willing. It's a great way to support the Lions Club. We do a lot of different things for the community. We do have here in Windsor Locks, we do actually sponsor the ambulance service that we have here in town. We do eye exams for kids for free. We actually build ramps for people who have trouble getting in and out of their homes. So we do have a ramp committee that does that. So, it is just a good way to get involved in the community. And you don't even have to live in Windsor Locks to participate. So like I said, if you are a golfer or you know somebody who's a golfer and you think maybe they would be interested, I am a contact. They're listed on the screen. I don't know if you can see it, but my number is there. You can give me a call or shoot me a text if you need more information, or if you want the application, if you want to become a sponsor, or if you want to create a foursome. So it looks like the sign-up deadline is May 1st. So we are coming up to it real fast because we're almost to the middle of April already. So it'll be a good time. Golf's always a good time. I love, one of my favorite quotes is from Mark Twain, and he said, golf is a good walk spoiled. So a lot of golfers, I think, can relate to that, especially if you start hitting your ball into the woods, which I am prone to do. So thank you again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Again, if you have questions, comments, let me know how I'm doing. If you've watched the show a couple of times, if you have suggestions, I would love to hear them. Don't forget to go to our sponsor, Dubby. Here's my tumbler I got. Dubby and their energy drink. If you are a gamer, or if you know somebody who's a gamer, or if you are a coffee drinker and you're looking for an alternative because too much coffee makes you jittery, or you're the 2 o'clock crash, that you're trying to avoid that, I highly recommend it. I've been drinking this for a while now. It's really good. This particular flavor tastes like orange, so it's almost like a Sunny Delight almost kind of taste. I really enjoy it. Go to w.gg. If you use the promotional code That Real Estate Show with that exclamation point there at the end, you get 10% off. So it's worth a try. See how it works for you, or give it to somebody as a gift. They have these tumblers like I have here. They have all different kinds and all different flavors that you can try. Better than Monsters and Red Bulls. I mean, those things are like $4, $5, $6 a can. So if you're somebody who drinks a lot of those or drinks a lot of coffee, but wants something without jitters and without the 2 o'clock crash, I recommend it. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.